Within each one of us is the capacity to see both the beauty and the beast, and to be both. Being in God's image, we love the same beauty that God loves, beauty which God, as a supreme artist, has spread all over the earth. That includes changes of the seasons. We love being cozy and safe from the elements too. We even enjoy reflections of our reality, the newness along with the oldness, the dry desert as well as the sea. And then there are the little things that others might miss, even the dead things, or more dead. All have a relative sense of beauty, of design. Not dead, but living things are the most enjoyable, even if they are small. Have you ever noticed the beauty of a dandelion? Did you know that every flower you've ever seen is displaying its ability to reproduce and showing off its sexual parts? This is God's doing. Would anyone want to destroy such sexual beauty or consider the nakedness of flowers something to cover up and be ashamed of? Are stamens, stigmas, and pollen pornographic? Should we then hate everything sexual? Does God hate our sexuality as pornographic? Should we then hate our own sexuality as evil? Let's take a look at the situation from God's point of view. Because man's artificial world is so distracting from the reality of God's universe, we often lose perspective of what is really going on and its fantastic beauty. Before God fashioned us, He had to make special conditions first for our survival. All earth life requires a stable environment. And God saw everything that He had made, and behold, it was very good. And that especially includes our own creative powers that He gave us. And God called the firmament heaven, and called the dry land earth. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth the herb yielding seed after his kind, whose seed is in itself." And God saw that it was good. Again, sexuality is good, wonderful, important, and to be preserved as it was designed, not abused or changed. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." And God said unto them, "Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth." This is all very sexual, is it not? Reproduction begins with the making of Adam and Eve, even though we're not told how it was done, and then giving them the authority and ability to multiply themselves as well. This is all good, because nothing bad comes from God, or it would weaken or even destroy His kingdom. Notice that good and God are nearly the same word. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. It appears that the forbidden fruit awakened their sexuality, and perhaps they thought to cover this new awareness with fig leaves. Does this suggest that the tree of knowledge was a fig tree? Jewish tradition says so. The shape of the fig and its many seeds suggest the male testicle. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Since the human power to create the image of God is sacred, God sets bounds and conditions on how these powers are to be used. God wrote down His instructions for us so we wouldn't forget. After God created the beasts, only then did He create His own children, in His own image and likeness. And these were instructed to use loving dominion over the beasts and the rest of the earth too. All belong to God, His children in all things. Every atom is God's handiwork and is loved and owned by God. Therefore, to threaten, violate, or hurt any creature unnecessarily is to offend God. He calls it sin. But God's children have always abused their many powers, especially their procreative powers. And it came to pass when Abraham was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold, now I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. This was probably an understatement. Therefore it shall come to pass that when the Egyptians shall see me, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, Thou art my sister, and my soul shall live because of thee. Sarah, her later name, actually was his half-sister through another wife. Abraham survived, but his son Isaac also had a beautiful wife. And the men of the place asked Isaac of his wife, and he said, Oh, she is my sister. For he feared to say, She is my wife, lest, said he, the men of the place should kill me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon. Yes, these women were absolutely gorgeous. Rebekah was Isaac's first cousin, not his sister. 1,000 years later, base sexual drives of human nature had not changed. And it came to pass at an evening tide that David walked upon the roof of the king's house, and from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? The problem is that human nature is selfish. It has never changed, and it never will change. So many men have continually disobeyed the Lord's instructions and used illegal, unjust, and dominating means to take advantage of women. And David took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, and she returned unto her house. And the woman conceived, and sent and told David, and said, I am with child. David thereafter placed her husband at the front lines of battle, where Uriah was sure to be killed. So David did worse than before. And when Bathsheba heard that Uriah her husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the mourning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife, and bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord, and the baby died. If men will kill to possess beauty, why? First of all, we need to understand what beauty is. When we were created in God's image, we were given mental wiring comparable to God's. Even when humans create their own babies, they copy God's handiwork. By our very nature, what God likes, we tend to like. But a man's brain is biased differently than a woman's. Even so, the woman's brain is biased so that both complement the needs of the other, making the male and female attractive to each other. The female is uniquely wired to have her mental way of seeing and desiring the male, and the male has another way, desiring the female. Sexually speaking, with a bit of humor, the male is turned on by a female easily and simply, while the female reaction is more complex. Such differences between the sexes makes it hard for males to research, understand, and deal with women. As for men, sexual attraction seems pretty simple. They know beauty when they see it. But there are different kinds of beauty. What does a man look for? A smile? Is it the clothes? How about cultural traditions that define beauty? To some, tattoos are beautiful. To others, those in their own culture are most desirable. In all cultures, wealth and prestige are factors. But with most, a lady taking forever to tie her shoes is a turnoff. What is there about the face? Do you like black lips? Maybe Come and Get Me is your standard, where you weakly allow her to be your leader. Perhaps there's class and style that impress you, or someone who enjoys the same activities. Perhaps you were attracted to aliens. Is outside appearance your standard? The makeup does make a difference, doesn't it? What kind of beauty do you prefer? Or is it something else that's more important? Does that make you dangerous? Maybe you are a real charmer. Perhaps your handsome face keeps the girls coming. All smiles and no worries attracts women who need security and suppose it resides in you. The macho look may seem like security for women, or maybe some men just assume they are macho, they pretend. Appearing righteous might work with some women. Not caring and hoping good luck will work doesn't. But maybe you're just a teddy bear after all. So are you desirable? Would anyone give up their aloneness for you? Could she look you in the eye and say, I love you? But looks aren't everything. Oh, that's what we say. Or are they? The author of the following story is not known. A cabbie picks up a nun. She gets into the cab and notices that a very handsome cab driver won't stop staring at her. She asks him why he is staring. He replies, I have a question to ask, but I don't want to offend you. She answers, My son, you cannot offend me. When you were as old as I am and have been a nun as long as I have, you get a chance to see and hear just about everything. I'm sure there's nothing you could say or ask that I would find offensive. Well, I've always had a fantasy to have a nun kiss me, she responds. Well, let's see what we can do about that. Number 1, you have to be single, and number 2, you must be Catholic. The cab driver is very excited and he says, Yes, I am single and Catholic. Okay, the nun says, pull into the next alley. The nun fulfills his fantasy with a kiss that gives him a feeling of ecstasy. But when they get back on the road, the cab driver starts crying. My dear child, says the nun, why are you crying? Forgive me, but I have sinned. I lied, and I must confess. I'm married, and I'm Jewish. And the nun says, Oh, that's okay. My name is Kevin, and I'm going to a Halloween party. Are looks in control of your standards, or do your standards control your judgment of what you see? Just looking at a female causes pleasure hormones to be released in the male brain. So we're not merely imagining beauty. What we see is magnified by brain hormones. Now we begin to understand the power of beauty over us and the care required to keep this power from overcoming common sense. It goes without saying that interacting with a female in a pleasing way greatly magnifies a male's happiness. If done according to God's instructions, the female is pleased as well. That would mean that God is also pleased. He made men and women to be happy with each other under the conditions He has set. Beauty is God's invention. Testosterone hormone magnifies a man's desire to control and expand his power. It is not simply a hormone that gives a man a desire for sexual expression, but if it dominates and controls the entire mind, it can also turn a man into a beast. Attractive females gratify man's desire to expand his personal freedom, but at the expense of the woman. Because a female becomes the means of magnifying a man, she becomes the object of his desire. Without love, however, desire is largely about fulfilling one's lust and boosting one's estimation of himself at the expense of women. What are your thoughts about a woman? Are they about her as a person or merely about her sexuality? What about the present state of your mental wiring? Our thoughts stem from the past, our genetic inheritance, tendencies, abilities, our upbringing, and the association with women, our own thoughts and decisions of many years. This last factor is how we manage our thoughts, how we alter our own perceptions and emotions, irrespective of other influences. So how realistic are your connections when it comes to a female? Is your dream girl based on reality or fantasy? Are your mental connections reasonable? If we examined your mental wiring, would we find order or confusion about females? Is your ideal woman that girl who would merely fit your needs? A sex toy or a thing that you expect to be your slave? Or a loving mother of your beloved children, all of whom you protect and cherish? Let's examine your mental and emotional programming. Is this mountain sexually attractive? Maybe this one is more your style. No? The dome is a favorite form in architecture. Many of the world's loveliest and most famous buildings use these beautiful shapes. So are they sexually attractive as well? If they are, and they are made of dead wood, stone, plaster, and metal, doesn't this tell you something about your thinking? Such a form is altogether wonderful and beautiful. And on the nation's Capitol dome, who should be standing there but a woman? Let's do another test of your mental and emotional wiring. Does this metal weather vane turn you on? But look, there she is, totally naked. Do you think Mr. Bull is looking at her beautiful lips, big eyes, makeup, or her hips, legs, painted nails, the seductive way she switches away flies with her tail, or the size and shape of her udder? Not at all. Looks do not arouse Mr. Bull. Only when a female is ovulating that gives off an odor will he come a-runnin'. This is the law of animals. Humans have a different law. Mr. Bull doesn't require a cow to wear a bra for protection against the eyes of other curious bulls. While the bull doesn't appear to care about his offspring either, the mother generously gives her calf life until it can find food for itself. Do men love and appreciate the patient giving of the mother's own life force to her offspring? Do they even think this way? Breast milk is almost as good as a blood transfusion. While an elephant feeds its young under the front legs, the baby isn't particular where it gets its food. So if feeding a lamb is fun and cute, and we enjoy the puppies fighting for a nipple, is this sexually motivating for you as a human? Is this naked pig a turn-on? Look at the party here. They're making pigs of themselves. Perhaps this naked ape makes you go ape. What's the difference? The mother plane feeds fuel to its children. Is this a turn-on? Are you beginning to see how laughable our thoughts can be about God's refueling operation, the human breast? One of the Eastern religions portrays a goddess in this painting, but she has no breasts. Would you like her beauty to adorn your office calendar? But now for the supreme test of your mental and emotional thinking about sex. I'm going to show you a very frank, in-your-face, full-body naked female. Ready? This won't take long. How well did you pass this test? Were you overwhelmed and shocked? Was her beauty beyond description and the focus of your passionate desire? Now for an illustration of a woman who, because of her religion, is required to cover all of her body to protect herself from the greedy and lustful eyes of men. Onlookers only have her eyes to guess what she really looks like. How about falling in love with a piece of rock like this one? Isn't real flesh and blood the real beauty we want? This woman is breastfeeding her baby. Can a man truly treasure, love, and protect a girlfriend, wife, even all women everywhere? Or lacking love, are we merely beasts looking for sexual satisfaction? Then feast your eyes on what might as well be inside a real breast. Every one of us needs guidance to keep us from thinking warped or ignorant thoughts. In the Bible, Paul taught the Corinthians, "The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them with his mortal mind, because they are spiritually discerned." The compass Paul is talking about is not the guidance of our physical body. No, here it represents the Spirit of God, which is impossible for the physical brain to understand. Why? Because spiritual principles are higher than the flesh can reach. This means that those who depend only on physical lusts to guide them will be spiritually blind, and therefore ruled totally by their passions. This is literal slavery, which is called also an addiction. The flesh lusteth against the Spirit, Paul tells Galatians, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary the one to the other. Now the works of the flesh are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you, that they which do these things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, gentleness, goodness, temperance. And they that are Christ's have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. Walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. So we're talking about a spiritual battle, a religious battle. Those who neglect their religion will find themselves getting into deep trouble with women and God. So what about our old ideas about women? Are these thoughts just about us and our needs? Do we see that this attitude is totally selfish? Does God treat us that way, that it's all about Him? Are we too set in our ways to change the connections in our brain about women in order to harmonize our thinking with God's requirements? Paul continues in 1 Corinthians 6, "The body is not meant for immorality, but for the service of the Lord. But he that committeth immorality sinneth against his own body." How is this possible, that immorality actually destroys our own souls? More important, do we really want to know the answer here? We're talking about our joy and happiness and pleasing God. Do we feel inclined to please God by improving ourselves? When we do, it's win-win. Nobody beats God's deals. Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, and ye are not your own? Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. So this is the perspective, the point of view that will solve the problems of our powerful lusts. God made lust, didn't He? He knows perfectly well what you're going through trying to harness that power. He claims ownership of all of us and therefore has the right to instruct how we should live. Said Jesus on the Sermon of the Mount, "Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Ye shall not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart." God points to the straight and narrow path. It is straight in the sense of being a true line to maximum joy. But the rules for remaining on that road are strict. You have to grab the steering wheel, take control of yourself, and drive in your proper lane. Those are the strict rules. Those who rebel against them put themselves and others in danger of losing everything. Let's not forget our responsibility to ourselves and to everyone else. Stay in your sexual lane. We're all tempted to get out from under condemnation. Lying is one way. We excuse ourselves. We blame others. Especially we want to blame the women that are tempting us. We're called to serve the Lord, and like Jonah the prophet, we sometimes turn and go the opposite direction and are swallowed up with our sin. But the Lord has ways to rescue us from our weakness, and He certainly made an impression on Jonah. One of God's names is Savior. In Hebrews we read this counsel, "Despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of Him. For whom the Lord loveth He chasteneth. And if ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, then are ye bastards and not sons." This is serious, for only sons of God receive the inheritance of God. And what is that inheritance? All that God has becomes yours, all of that which you can rightly manage. A bastard is one who has no inheritance. The human mind cannot overcome the human mind. Only a higher mind can do that for you. God is ready to help, but you must invite God to be in you, to purge out and control the evil over you. Only then can you gain the victory. This is the way out. Don't miss this powerful doctrine. If you have love in you, it is from God. Then you have the power to love women and be worthy of their trust. One who honors, loves, and protects women, all women. One who can be trusted with power, even God's great power to create His own image. Be that person, and women everywhere will bless your name, and your lovely wife will bring you the happiness you always wanted. Well, more than you ever thought possible.